Hey everybody, hope you guys are all doing well. Today we're going to get back into some grilling with my Traeger grill. I'm going to be smoking some pork barbecue ribs, or you can do beef, and I'm going to be smoking some chicken. Fairly simple recipes. I'm telling you, the possibilities are endless with this Traeger grill. We're going to take our pork spare ribs and just give them a nice trim. These had some excess fat on them that needed to be removed, so I just took a sharp paring knife and I just took my time to remove it. One of the things that I've learned over time is that when you have to trim meat or cut it into certain pieces or whatever it is, it's better to work when the meat is chilled or cold. Then you can move on to the next step, but it's better to work with cold meat when you have to do steps like this. Just as a reminder, remember, you don't have to use pork if you don't want to. You can use beef. What I'm doing here is I'm removing that membrane from the underside of the ribs, which exposes more of the flesh. That way it can cook better. Here I am removing that flap. These are regular spare ribs, so there's a flap on the underside that I remove so the rack can lay flat on the grill. So I just take that off, and then I take that membrane off of that piece of meat also. So that takes a little time. You can take your time and do that. We're going to be using the same seasoning for the chicken and the ribs. This is a nice mixture that I put together. Of course, Grand Diamond seasoning is a base, but I've added some other little twists and turns in there. Now what I'm using is a sweet vinegar that I like. It's acidic, but it's still kind of sweet, and I'm going to make it into a paste so we have a wet rub. It is definitely okay if you decide to season and marinate these ribs and the chicken the night before. It's even better. Here, I did it in about 4 hours in advance. All I had to do was set my Traeger to the smoke setting. It warms itself up, gets to the right temperature, and then all I have to do is open up the lid and lay down my ribs. So it's my intention to put chicken on later on during the smoking process. So I'm going to lay the ribs to one side of the grill. I'm going to let those smoke for about 3 hours. Then I'm going to add the chicken. If you guys notice now, I have added aluminum foil to my grease pan because it makes it so much easier to clean since this Traeger has been getting a lot of use. So I'm just going to do the same exact process to the chicken. Really easy to do. Just going to let that hang out in the refrigerator for a couple of hours while the ribs smoke. What I'm doing here is I'm making a mop for the ribs, and I'm using some apple ale and apple cider vinegar. The apple ale is going to offer some sweetness, but we need more acidity than sweetness, so that's why I'm adding the apple cider vinegar. I only mop the ribs one time during the smoking process just to give it a little bit of moisture, but that's it, because the apple ale has sugar, and you definitely want to be careful about brushing too much sugar on the meat because it can burn too early. So just be careful. Just offer a little bit of moisture halfway through the process. By this time, the ribs have been smoking for about 3 hours, so it was time to add the chicken because I wanted the chicken to smoke for 2 hours. So the ribs will get a total of 5 hours, and the chicken will smoke for 2. The other good thing is if you have whole chickens that you want to smoke, just smoke them whole and then cut them later, so you don't necessarily have to cut them before smoking them. Now what I was doing here was checking my hopper to make sure I had enough wood pellets, and I'm using hickory, but Traeger has all types and flavors of wood pellets that you can choose from. Here's what the chicken looks like after 2 hours of smoking. It really looks good, but I want to make sure it reaches the proper internal temperature. So I'm going to put the ribs and the chicken on 180 degrees, and we're still going to cook it nice and slow. The ribs were able to come off in about an hour and a half. They reached the proper internal temperature, so I was happy with it. They have that beautiful color because of the mop that we used. Remember, we included a little sugar through that apple ale, but we still needed to be very careful and watch your ribs when you're cooking on your grill. The ribs were so good, they actually didn't even need a barbecue sauce, and the chicken with just a wet rub was just as delicious and moist. Be sure and check out TraegerGrills.com so you can learn more about the grill itself, the different sizes that they have available, and where you can find a dealer in your area. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you spending some time with me. Don't forget, these recipes and others can be found at gdseasoning.com. See you next time.